The Retirement Cafe podcast, Get Over Indulgence with Duncan, Bhaskaran, Brown. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Retirement Cafe podcast with me, your host, Justin King. If you're thinking about your retirement or already retired, you're in the right place. My aim is to help you plan for and live a successful and meaningful retirement. Retirement is far more than just a financial event. It's a significant life event, a major transition, which will bring with it new challenges and opportunities. So each episode contains tips, information, and inspiration to help you feel more informed and confident about your retirement. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Hello and welcome to this week's episode. You are very welcome. Today I'm excited to share with you a conversation that I had recently with a chap called Duncan, Bhaskaran, Brown. Duncan is an author, speaker and self-confessed humorous dancer. Having spent more than 20 years of his life overdoing it, he now spends his time helping people push overindulgence out of their lives. In our conversation, Duncan confesses how, strictly speaking, he's drunk more than his fair share of wine and eaten more than his fair share of cake. He shares his formula for overcoming indulgence and how he's created a program to help others do the same. We also chat about his new book, Get Over Indulgence. Take control and find your stress-free life, which is a humorous yet equally serious depiction of his daily battles with junk food and alcohol and how he found a way through. Without further ado, I hope you enjoy my conversation with Duncan. Welcome to the Retirement Cafe podcast, Duncan, Bhaskaran, Brown.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm pleased to be here.
Great. Thank you, Duncan. Well, we've known each other for a little while, but for those who don't know who you are, tell me a little bit about yourself and what you're up to.
Well, my name's Duncan. I'm a speaker, an author, and a humorous dancer. What I do is I help people to get over indulgence. So that might be to do with food, it might be to do with alcohol. Hey, it could even be doom scrolling down through Facebook on your phone, whatever you're overindulging in. That's what I help people remove from their lifestyle. Generally, I help people stop getting in the way of themselves being brilliant, which is a very rewarding thing to do.
That's an interesting expertise, Duncan. So I think all of us probably, I can admit to overindulging in certain things. Especially around, if we talk about celebration times, maybe having a too much to drink or too much to eat. I was out for my daughter's birthday last night and, I have a strict rule not to have puddings in my life because I know what puddings do to my waistline. But I was tempted by her favourite restaurant and not my favourite restaurant is Pizza Express. She's 13. She was 13 yesterday. So I finally have a teenager in the house that she keeps on reminding me about. But at the moment it's okay. So we'll see where the next few years develop to. But I broke my rule last night because the Pizza Express menu told me that I can't even pronounce the ice cream, I'm afraid, but this Italian ice cream that I was going to have was probably the best ice cream I was ever going to taste. And I fell for it, hook, line and sinker, and I had, you had to have 2 scoops as well for the £4.50. You weren't allowed 1 scoop because you were, there's no way I could pay £4.50 with knowing that I could have 2 scoops even though I only wanted 1 scoop just to check that it was fantastic. So I had the 2 scoops. It wasn't the best ice cream that I've ever had, and I feel guilty this morning that I broke my kind of allegiance to never having puddings.
No, well, look, there's an awful lot in what you say. Though, to be fair, I do quite like Pizza Express. They do that coconut sorbet. That is quite tasty. So I admit I indulge in that occasionally. But, I think it's good to make the difference between indulgence and overindulgence. It's all right. I'm not a Puritan. I don't want you to never enjoy life ever again. I think having strategies is great. And those bright lines where you say, well, I don't do that. It generally makes your life a lot easier, doesn't it? Because you've decided you're not going to do it. Yes. Although sometimes you get tripped up, don't you?
You do. So tell me, is overindulgence a problem in the UK?
I think it's a massive problem. I think it's so much of a problem we don't even sort of realize how much of a problem it is. I mean, you can look at the amount of money that these things cost the NHS. So smoking costs upwards of about 3 billion. Alcohol costs about 6 billion. Poor diet, you can kind of pick your statistic, but again, it's in the billions. So you add all of those three things up, we are talking about a sizable chunk of the NHS's budget, and that's just one way of calculating it. That's just direct costs rather than the indirect health costs around alcohol and poor diet and how they contribute to a lot of other diseases.
Now I've just got this sensation that you're obviously, this is a topic of expertise and there may be some kind of background story to overindulgence. So tell me more about that. Yeah.
Well, I find very few people get into this sort of line of work without some kind of previous history. So, I mean, I started off with chocolate because, it's a socially acceptable drug for a 9-year-old, isn't it? And I felt that it helped me. I mean, I didn't really get on with school so well. It didn't seem to be set up for somebody like me. I got bullied a lot, and that was just the teachers. So I found ways of escaping and coping, and a lot of those were based around food. And then you kind of grow up a little bit, don't you? And you realize that there are other things in the world like alcohol. And I started off drinking socially, innocently enough kind of thing. And it progressed a little bit. But of course, I had my rules, didn't I? I only ever drank on the weekend. It's just the weekend started to get progressively longer and longer and longer. One of them lasted for about 20 years. And by that particular Sunday night, I was drinking a couple of bottles of wine a night, and it was sort of obvious that something needed to change. So, I'm very lucky in a lot of respects. I discovered a guy called Alan Carr, not the comedian, the world-renowned smoking expert, and using his method helped me to stop smoking. And then when it became obvious that I was drinking too much, I sort of applied some of what I remembered from his method to help me remove the alcohol from my life. And honestly, I never felt better. Genuinely, I'm in my mid-40s now, and I feel better than I did in my mid-20s.
Wow. And what was the turning point for you then, Duncan? What was the realization on that Sunday night? What was the bit that kind of went, hold on, I need to change?
Yeah, this is the point where I give you that really beautifully crafted 4 a.m. staring into the bathroom mirror story, isn't it? But unfortunately, I don't think it ever really happens like that. There was never one like kind of defining moment. What happened was over a period of time, I realized that I needed to change my life. I met this beautiful woman. She was amazing, but she was a bit weird. She didn't really drink. She didn't smoke. She even ate chickpeas. So curious. And she kind of nudged me in the right direction. And as I say, I stopped smoking. I kind of played around with improving my diet a little bit. And we decided that we wanted to do the natural thing. So we decided we wanted to start a family, which we did. We had some bumps along that particular road. And unfortunately, my wife had a miscarriage. And, that was very hard for her. And it was hard for me as well. I didn't really know how to deal with that. So I did what I knew. I reached for the thing that I thought helped me, which was, of course, a bottle of wine. And looking back, I can see how destructive that was, how it did the opposite to help. But I kind of got to a point where at some level in my head, there was this question: what do you want more? Do you want to have a kid, or do you want to have a drink? And thankfully, I made the right choice on that one. And about almost exactly 9 months the day after I stopped drinking, our daughter Lila was born. So,
Wow.
it worked itself out. As I say, I don't think there ever really is one kind of moment. I think it's a journey, and life's a journey, isn't it? And we're all slowly trying to improve ourselves, and that's what I kind of like, try and help people to move in the right direction.
So what is to you a definition of overindulgence? I mean, of course, we're talking about alcohol here, but there can be many other things that you can do. And in fact, crazily enough, I think you can overindulge in sports, you can overindulge in, media, you can overindulge in so many different things. So what point do you say that you are overindulging, and what point is normal?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. And honestly, there's no great, easy, hard and fast answer. I mean, that's the thing a lot of people want when you talk about alcohol. They just want a number. They want to know this amount of units per week equals you have a problem. And, you can put an argument for a lot of different numbers. But I think in essence, you have a problem when you have a problem. And I know that doesn't sound like it's really answering the question, but like take sport, for example, you're dead right. A lot of people get into that cycle where they're just doing it harder and harder and harder, taking up more time. And it stops being something that's actually providing them with a benefit, because there's loads of benefits to sport, getting out in the fresh air, the exercise, the effect it has on your health, socialization, community. There's all of those great benefits. But at some point, it becomes more of an obsession, and it just becomes something that you keep doing. And that stops it being a positive, and it starts to become a negative. And with so many things, food, alcohol, television, gaming, social media, we start off and we think it helps us reduce our stress. But after a while, it starts to contribute to our stress. And once it starts to contribute to our stress and stops helping us to relax and actually becomes the source of tension, that's definitely, that's the point where you have a problem.
Wow. So I get the feeling that you're on a bit of a mission to try and help people with this. Tell me about what you're up to.
Yeah. So I genuinely just want to share the joy, really. I stopped drinking. I sorted my diet out. I feel a lot better than I ever have in my life, and that's what I want to share with people. The energy, the focus, the peace, the freedom. So yes, that's very much where I come from. I love speaking, so I speak to as many audiences as I can find, and I share my message with them. As I said, I'm an author as well. I've written a book called Get Over Indulgence, which you can find on Amazon, which is another way of trying to get the message out there, share it with people. I like being on podcasts, and I also Morris dance, but that's just that's just for fun.
So what are if someone's thinking to themselves, I possibly am drinking too much, or I probably I'm getting too consumed by some media, or I see maybe they're even observing it in other people. Maybe they're seeing their children, continually, gaming, continually on TikTok. I read a podcast interview. So I'm under pressure at the moment, again, referring back to my 13-year-old daughter to get TikTok. And I've battered TikTok off a little bit because I've said, look, it's for 13-year-olds. Yeah, it's the minimum age to get the thing. And of course, now I've hit that watershed. And I read an email over the weekend, so I'm under pressure. I've had the request, Dad, can I have TikTok, please? And I'm very much about this, about all these things are stealing our attention, and then therefore, when we say yes to say something, we're also saying no to something else. So if I say yes to go, yes to going for a swim, I'm saying no maybe to some time with my family. If I'm saying yes to going and playing hockey on a Saturday afternoon, I'm saying no to something else going on maybe in my life. So, and of course, this is what we do all the time, isn't it? But if I say, if I say yes to, 3 glasses of wine, then maybe I'm also saying no to actually sensible conversation and waking up alert and aware the next morning to participate in whatever I'm going to do. So everything has a trade-off, doesn't it? And there is some kind of balance somewhere along the line of, so what is acceptable? And I read this email on Saturday from a chap called, I think it's Scott Galloway, and he said, and he was talking about, we all missed a trick. He was talking about investments, which is kind of my world. And, we all missed a trick we all thought YouTube was the thing and Facebook was the thing and LinkedIn was the thing. And that thing where you dialed in and listened to conversations. I can't even remember what it was now.
Clubhouse.
The Clubhouse, that was the thing. And actually all the way along was actually TikTok, which has just suddenly overtaken everything. And the kids love it and everyone loves it. And it's really taken people's attention, of course. And he said, watch this. And this, they were having this conversation, Scott Galloway and his friend, and say, watch this. And his 15-year-old came in and got down from the table, lay on the sofa, pulled out his phone, and then spent the next hour on TikTok in some kind of, and in fact, the words he used was in a comatose situation. Now, of course, you could say, well, hold on, why didn't the adult intervene? But I think it was just quite interesting. And I actually got my daughter to read this email. I said, this is one of my concerns, and she's going, yeah, but I won't, Daddy, I won't do that. I'm into my horse riding and I'm into my hockey playing, I'm into my art and and I said, absolutely. But you've got to remember that as soon as this takes one part of your attention, you've got to be saying no to something else. You have to. And that might be to your hamster. It might be to taking the dog for a walk. I don't know what it will be no to, but it definitely has to be no to something else. And then, of course, what is this fine line somehow, I feel, of what are we saying yes to and how much should we say yes to and how much should we say no to? You've obviously said no. I think you've now saying no to any alcohol.
Yeah. I haven't drunk for almost exactly 7 years, actually. Yeah. We probably ought to organise a party.
Absolutely. So again, I think we're all treading this line. What's your advice and guidance around this line of what is okay? How should we help people we see overindulging who maybe haven't come to that realisation yet? And what's the right level of balance?
Look, there's so much in what you just said. And very, very briefly, I think concentration, attention, it's a finite resource, and it's one that we really should be guarding, and it's something that's so precious, and if you don't look after it, it will go. And by looking after it, I mean, making sure there are points in your life where you can just focus on whatever you're doing and not get distracted by things pinging at you. Social media is okay in moderation. It's when you have all of those notifications and it takes over your life and it just steals your concentration. Now, you were asking, you mentioned hockey and TikTok, and I would say there's quite a big difference between hockey and TikTok. If you really love hockey, what's the most amount of time you can spend playing hockey? There's going to be a physical limit on it. I mean, eventually you're just going to fall on the floor and your legs are going to stop working. It's hard work, isn't it, hockey? So there's a kind of an upper limit with hockey. So no matter how obsessed with it you are, you can't do it all day. However, TikTok, you could do that all day. You can just, veg out on the sofa and do it. An hour, that doesn't even sound like a long session, You could do it for literally hours and hours and hours. In fact, it's designed to make you do it for hours and hours and hours. Its whole purpose is to keep your eyes glued on that screen. So you're fighting against something which is attempting to pull you in, to steal your concentration. So, yeah, you have to be very careful with social media, and you have to recognize that, all of the big social media companies, they've spent ages in Las Vegas working out how they keep people in the casino and they keep them pulling the one-armed bandits. And, it works at a neurological level. It's all about dopamine and reward and all of that brain chemistry stuff, which I'm sure you've got a good understanding of. But you've got to be very careful. It is a pretty powerful thing. And I think, you're obviously having that discussion, yourself as part of your family, but I think it's something we need to think about a little bit more as a society. I think, part of it is us finding our own balance with it, but I think part of it is we probably need some sort of regulations, because the social media it's designed to just suck you in and suck you in and suck you in, and at its worst it does. It works exactly the same way as drugs do. So that is a massive issue, and one that I'm sure lots of people have come across. And so what do you do if you observe in somebody, that they're overdoing it, whether it's social media or alcohol or cigarettes or whatever? That's something that comes up a lot in what I do, because I talk to a lot of people and they are genuinely concerned. They want to help somebody that they love, because they can see it. The person themselves isn't necessarily able to see the problem. So what do? The problem is you kind of have to fight against your instinct, because your instinct is to point out to them, you're spending all that time on social media, it's destroying your concentration, it's wasting your life, yada, yada, yada. But if you explain, if you kind of talk about the negatives, whether that's drinking, smoking, social media, whatever, it makes that person feel afraid. It makes them feel nervous. It makes them feel anxious. And when you feel afraid or nervous or anxious, you do whatever it is you think reduces your stress, reduces your fear, and reduces your anxiety, which is usually drinking, smoking, or spending your time on social media. So the sort of the traditional approach, not like I love my mum and everything, but when she was trying to get me to stop smoking, she'd always go, smoking's bad for you. And that would just make me want to smoke more. So you have to kind of fight against that. And I know where my mum's coming from. I know where everybody's coming from. They're coming from this position of love. They want to help. But you've got to realize that the most direct way of doing it, the way that the government sort of encourages us to say, I mean, that's what they stick on the cigarette packets, isn't it? It's what they're increasingly putting on alcohol, health warnings. It's all about how bad it is for you. But that actually just encourages your consumption. What you need to do is just, come at it more with their kind of point of view in mind, and think that actually attacking them is simply going to drive them further into where they are. So you just need to talk to people and help them to understand what they're doing, and help them to understand that there is a different way, and that help is out there, and that the possibility of change exists. That's something that I think a lot of people, they're stuck in a situation and they don't see that there can be something different. So if you can help the people that you love to see that there is another way, then you really are helping them along the track. Simply that realization that there might be a problem is a massive step. So just helping them to see that in a gentle, compassionate, and loving kind of a way.
And is this what the topics of your book is actually addressing, the strategies to help people with this type of stuff?
Yeah, so my book, I think it can be enormously helpful to people who are looking at somebody from the outside who has a problem. But it is mostly written for people who think they might be drinking a little bit too much, or eating a diet that's less than what they'd want it to be. And what it does is it goes through the sort of thought process around that. So I encourage people to sort of get to grips and identify that kind of the voice in your head. Like, I'm not saying you're crazy and you're hearing voices or anything, but we all have that kind of that urge, that little voice in our head that says, go on, have the ice cream. It's the best ice cream in the world. Why don't you just have the ice cream? So you kind of, you identify that you have that part of your brain that makes those suggestions. You've also got to accept that there's another part of your brain, the bit that actually makes the decisions. So you've got this bit that makes the suggestions, and you've got the bit that makes the decisions. Once you've kind of identified that bit making the suggestions, I encourage people to give it a name. And the reason why that helps so much is because then you're being very clear that it is one part of your brain that's making that suggestion, but there's another part that's making that decision. I used to call mine Hank, but that's another story. But you give it a name, so you're just clear about who you're dealing with. And once you've done that, you just ask it a question. Now, that could be something as simple as, how's that going to help? But I usually work with people and we come up with a more kind of bespoke question, something that's more relevant to what they're doing. So, if you want to be good at hockey, you could say, well, how's that going to help me make it into the A team or whatever your hockey goal is? Or it could be around your business. How's that going to help me meet my 2022 business goals? It could be about relationships, could be about mental health. It could be about so many things. We just come up with a question that's really pertinent to you. For me, a lot of the time it was about becoming a father, so how's that going to help me become a father? And that was very much it with alcohol. It was standing in the way of that. So I asked myself, how's that going to help me become a father? And the answer to that question is obvious. It never does. And the part of your brain that makes the decisions knows the answers to these. So you identify that bit that makes the suggestions, give it a name and ask it a question. And that's the way to handle the thought process.
Brilliant. What an excellent strategy. And I'm sure there's much more detail in your book, which of course is called Get Over Indulgence, Take Control, Find Your Stress-Free Life. We will put a link into the show notes where you can pick up a copy from Amazon and possibly maybe other bookstores also supply it. I'm not sure, but
it's in a few good bookshops and probably a couple of bad ones as well.
Brilliant.
But your local independent bookshop can order it even if they haven't got it.
Great. Well, Duncan, that's been absolutely fascinating, and I'm sure many of our listeners and viewers on YouTube will we've all got, none of us are living a life that we're absolutely happy with every single part of our life being in balance. No. And I'm sure that's
and I think that something that I always love to stress with people is it's a journey. You don't have to be perfect tomorrow morning, but if you're slightly better tomorrow morning, you're at least moving in the right direction, aren't you?
Yeah. And there's a chap I listen to called I'm not sure how you pronounce his surname. It was Peter Attia. He's a medical doctor in the States, and his speciality really is interviewing other people other doctors about staying healthy. And his thing's all about longevity, and of course longevity is important to listeners of the Retirement Cafe, and I'm sure everyone. We want to stay fitter and healthier for longer, and he currently looks at, he wants to be he imagines there's going to be an Olympics for 100-year-olds, for centurions. Brilliant. And when he's 45 now, and when he gets there, he wants to compete. Therefore, he imagines that he gets there at 100, and he's now working backwards, working out how fit does he need to be at 90, at 80, at 70, at 60, at 50 to be there. So he's all his training now and his diet and everything else is all about competing in that Olympics for only available for 100-year-olds.
So I'm not sure I'm going to be competing against him because it is my ambition in life to still be Morris dancing at 100.
Brilliant.
I don't know whether I'll have time to do the triathlon as well.
Fantastic. But I love it. Again, it's that future pacing, isn't it? It's like, who do I want to be in the future? And therefore, what decision do I need to make tomorrow? And actually, today, in fact, if that decision is not having a drink or not eating that double portion of ice cream like myself, maybe that's the answer. But I haven't read your book. I really do look forward to reading it though, and I've thoroughly enjoyed chatting to you this morning, and it's been great to see you again.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's been fun.
Thanks, Duncan. Sincere thanks to Duncan for sharing his challenging yet inspiring story. You will find links to Duncan's website and his book on the show notes page of our website at theretirementcafe.co.uk. As ever, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, as it really does help. And for more interviews and retirement planning videos, you may want to check out my YouTube channel, which is Justin King MFP, or you can click the link in the show notes. You can get in touch with your ideas for guests or topics to cover on my email, which is hello@retirementcafe.co.uk. Or you can send your thoughts and feedback. I'd love to hear what you think. So until next time, I'm Justin King, helping you feel more informed in your retirement.